So imagine the perfect practice, right? You created it just the way that you wanted it. And you spent a lot of money to build it. You invested a lot of time and sweat and, I don't know, tears maybe, a lot of blood to get it exactly the way you wanted. All this effort to get clients to work in the way that you would want to work with your business. You do all of this, and then at the drop of a hat, all of that changes. What would you do?
This is Propulsion, the podcast for forward-thinking and driven and ambitious financial planning professionals. It is the catalyst to the exponential growth of your financial planning practice, your business, or your franchise. This is where professionals come in order to learn about the latest technology, to learn about best practice when it comes to running and managing their business, as well as marketing, sales, relationship building, the best and most valuable interviews with local and international guests, and a whole host of other things. Without any further ado, here is your host, Francois du Toit.
Cobus, welcome back to the show. I think you're one of the first returning guests from way back, season 1. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Francois. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Yeah, great to see you. As I said earlier, I am so excited for today's discussion with you because, well, one, you're returning, but secondly, the stuff we're going to talk about is just absolute. I had goosebumps, but yesterday was a goosebump day for me with everything that happened. But just really excited to get into this, and thanks for being here, and thanks for being willing to share this entire amazing journey that you've been on. And I think one of the main things we want to show is also, if you are an early adopter, when you have the courage to try new things and see how they work and embrace things that we don't have control over, what is actually possible. So on that, let's start this discussion at the beginning, right? So in the previous episode, we did talk about how you got into this. That's not what I want to talk about. What I do want to talk about is, you had this amazing practice. I remember going to your office in 2019. We didn't really know each other back then a little bit, but I had you on my podcast when I just started the podcast back then. And this whole experience, from the time, the morning, I got a message to say, this is how you get to the office. This is where you should park. When I got there, it was very clear where I had to park. So all of that stuff. And then that whole experience just continued as I went into the office and then had a chat with you and everything that happened around that, right? So that was sort of your business that you've built, and you were very proud of it because I think you said 95% of your clients actually came to see you at the office, which was an incredible feat. Back in let's say even start of 2020, a lot of advisors have not been able to do that. So tell me a little bit about what life was like for you back then. What are the things that you felt the way that you built your business at that point in time, why it worked for you, and just sort of, what were some of the takeaways from that part of your journey?
Yeah, that feels like a very long time ago, Francois, but I can tell you one thing. I was proud of having what I then called an office-based practice, or working from the office. And at the end of the day, it took me a long time to build a practice where 95% of my clients came to my office, and they came because we created this fantastic experience for our clients and my clients at the end of the day. It worked successfully. So you can imagine how shockingly surprised I was in December 2019, January 2020, when I realized that there's a new word in this word, COVID. And I heard the word Wuhan. And speaking to many of my international colleagues, I realized we're going into a problem area because we can't visit our clients and our clients cannot visit us. So I did one thing that I believed in for many years. If you do not disrupt yourself, you will be disrupted. And I took that leap and I said, well, I love this working from office, but maybe there's an alternative. And what I then and many refer to as working from home. The experience that created from the working from office and the clients obviously had to change. And therefore it had to take a mindset from myself, my staff, but more importantly, from our clients. Because if you don't change your clients' minds, they may not want to work from anywhere or from virtual or digital, or they would still want to see you. So that's where it came from. And that's where I was happy to make that decision to change my working space.
I mean, surely there must have been like at least a little bit of time where you went like, okay, so things are changing. What am I going to do? Like, was there anything like that where you just thought like you had to think about like what you're going to do, and sort of what the new world might look like?
Not really, Franco, because I was in that fortunate position where I had colleagues across the world and they were 3 months in front of us. So I knew there was only one way to go. I knew my mindset and my client's mindset had to change to cope with this COVID thing. I also knew that this pandemic, once off, was not going to be 21 days, that this was a long-term thing, because you could just see from the history. Therefore, no, there was no change. But what I had to do was adopt and adapt and fly, as I call it, early on. And that I could only do if I made changes to my practice with my clients and with my staff. And therefore, no thinking about it. All I knew was I'm going to set myself 100 days to pivot from an office-based practice to a hybrid virtual practice.
And then how did you, I mean, what were some of the things maybe from your working from office days that you think like, okay, so this needs to go with me into this new environment? Was there anything in particular that you said, I want to keep this, but I need to figure out a new way how to do this digitally?
Well, the whole thing about clients and turning your clients into advocates, as I always say, is the experience, the value proposition. So I had to go from an in-office value proposition experience with my admin staff, with coffee and menus and all these nice things, parking and picking the people up at the bottom, at the floor. I had to change that and now create a new experience. And that experience I had to create behind me in what I now call and refer to as a canvas. Because when you have a canvas behind you, you can create so many new experiences for your clients. You can also, with the virtual world, incorporate your client's whole family, because the husband can be in the house, the wife can be at the office, the children, because you certainly should be dealing with the children as well to make sure that inheritance is transferred one day. So I had to create a new experience, and that is technology, cameras, lighting, backgrounds, and just being excited about it and getting my clients involved to use Zoom, to use Teams, to use electronic signing and all these things.
And I remember fondly, right at the beginning there, remember that we had all those issues with Zoom, like I always said, when they're going to sort it out, just don't stress. It's too big. It's too important. They won't just leave it. And it's always this thing about people showing, oh, here's a vulnerability, here's an issue. And you and I had some discussions and all of that around it. But then you did something very interesting. A simple thing, like very simple, but I think incredibly powerful. And I want you to sort of share this maybe a little bit. You sent out a short survey, like it was very short. And it was all just, you could just click what you wanted. And you were asking, what do you prefer? And all sorts of things. But yeah. I mean, what has that survey helped you with in terms of this new value proposition?
It's amazing because, again, to create that right experience, I created the 10-question survey. It was actually 9 questions, and the 10th question was just your name, etc. So I knew who the survey was coming from. I used SurveyMonkey. It was amazing. And I sent that survey out through my WhatsApp broadcast, through my client stay in touch email system, through many communications tools, because I wanted every client to say, do you prefer to meet me still in office or at the coffee shop or anywhere where it suits you? But would you not rather prefer to see me virtually? And if you were to see me virtually, would you prefer Zoom or Teams or Google Hangout or whichever Skype you would want to know? And I would ask some certain other questions as well. How often do you want to do a review with me now that we're in the virtual world? I got 427 of those respondents back. It was amazing because I drove it. I made sure I get responses. And then I gave it to my admin girls and say, now look at all of these clients. And if they want to meet on Zoom, arrange for a Zoom meeting. If they want to meet on Teams, arrange for a team meeting. And that is the way you turn them into wanting to see you virtually, by creating this new experience for them as well as you, and making sure that they know how to use Zoom, create a video, create an email, so that when you invite them, it's all sorted and you now have a virtual business and a digital business that you and your clients love. 99% of my business at the moment has gone virtually. It's the most amazing thing.
Yeah, awesome. You increased from 95% on one to 99% on another one, which is incredible. And there's something else that you mentioned. I want to take just maybe a couple of things back. You were saying, like, your colleagues overseas, and that has been 3 months ahead. And that sort of helped you prepare and have insights into this. I mean, that goes to show how important it is, because I think often, you look at people on LinkedIn and, they're not talking to clients, they're talking to other financial advisors, connecting to other financial advisors. But apart from LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is sort of the first go-to thought, but building a international network like that, getting to know people in other countries, getting to know people from different organizations is critically important in how you shape your value proposition.
It is absolutely. And yes, as you know, Francois, I belong to 8 affiliations, but one of my affiliations is MDRT. And there I have fellow MDRT members across the world, from Japan to the UK, to Australia, to Malaysia, to Singapore, you can call it. And we have an incredible network where if there's a blast and a bomb in Lebanon, I can phone my friend Naji and say, how is it going? If there's a recession in the UK, or if it's Brexit, or if it's Trumpet, if it's COVID, that network allows me to communicate with them on a day-to-day basis as I want to, and realize how the economy is going to differ, how the pandemic is impacting their businesses. And networking, I believe in networking, Francois, as you know. There's nothing more powerful than networking and making sure you have a resource internationally and locally.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't agree with, and it's not easy, right? But you make it look so easy. Like, so give you maybe 1 or 2 tips. Like, if somebody wants to start building a network, be it in South Africa, be it internationally, like, I mean, where would you start today? Because, like, honestly, like, you make it look so effortlessly and easy. And I look at, when I talk to people from overseas and that, I mean, they really sing your praises in terms of, because you care and you help and you're really involved. But I mean, that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and all of that. So, I mean, what advice would you give to people who also want to build a network like that, internationally and locally?
Francois, I always say, never make things difficult, because as soon as you make things difficult or complicated, you don't want to do it. It must be embedded in what you do. It must be authentic to what you do. So building that network is looking for every opportunity. In the old days, I said anybody 3 meters or closer to you, you could network with. But obviously conferences in the old days, seminars in the old days is good. But social media has taken this networking globally. And obviously belonging to international affiliations takes this internationally. And it's simply about being authentic, wanting to meet people, wanting to introduce people to others, wanting people to meet with you. And if you do that for the real sake of not wanting to benefit from it necessarily financially or any way like that, but purely benefiting with it as a person, because it makes you a stronger person. It makes you a better person. It just evolves and enhances your intellectual property, your knowledge, your experience.
Yeah. I mean, those are amazing things. And I think the biggest thing to get over, like, I often have the most noble of intentions whenever I do go to an event, or even if I join these digital online virtual summits and things. This time I'm going to engage. This time I'm going to talk to people, and then, like, I don't. So I don't know why that is. So I think one needs to get over that as well. So I tend to either land up in the corner with a coffee, or I stand with people that I already know. Because it makes me feel more comfortable. And I think there's a lot of people feeling like that as well. So please come and have coffee with me, and maybe we can meet each other. But it's definitely, it's not an easy thing. But I think it's like anything. It's like when we started with the show, I look at Norma, like, yes, like, you look at that first episode of season 2 when she started with us, and you look at it today, like, you just keep doing it, and it just becomes easier, or at least you make it look easier and easier and easier, and it becomes a natural thing. So it's all about doing. And in that, I want to ask you, because we've now been talking for quite a while around working from home, right? So when you pivoted from your office-based practice to working from home, because we were in lockdown, couldn't go anywhere for a very long time. So that's what you did. I want to know, so sort of how has things progressed in terms of that phase, working from home? If you think about the technology that you started with, you think about the process, you think about how you ran your meetings, etc. How has that evolved, from when you started doing it to sort of when it matured, I would almost want to say?
Francois, maybe in the future I will also write a book about it because it's an amazing experience. So here I'm sitting at my office at home that I love, that I created since 2016. I look out on my garden, on my pool, in front of me. I have a rose garden, and I always say you have this rose garden to smell the roses in the morning. But I still look at one thing. I still look at my pool or my garden or my roses. I sit here for 8 hours. I do virtual Zoom or Teams reviews with my clients, and you feel entrapped. And I said, no. There must be something better to do here. And I then started creating my working from anywhere situation. It means that I wanted to have a view. And my wife and my kids would say, Kobus, what do you mean by a view? I wanted to see water. I want to see the sea, the waves. I want to see a dam. I want to see a river. I want to see a bush if I need to. How do I do that? Well, firstly, I needed to make sure that this incredible hybrid virtual experience I've created at my house, I can transfer that virtual experience with me, with my technology, with everything that you need to do a virtual review with a client with an experience. I needed to create that. And therefore, it took a couple of months to plan this after it took me 100 days to convert into office-based practice from a house in a virtual practice. And I said, that is the way I'm going to do it. And the first time I will remember, I took the basics with me on a week. And I decided with my wife, let's start with a week a month. And I always remember going to my first destination and not checking the basics like broadband. Is there a generator for load shedding? Can you do this? Is the view going to be okay? Is the background going to be okay? Because now you had to create everything from scratch. And that's when I decided I want to not feel entrapped. I want to feel that, yes, I work for 2-3 weeks from home, but then I want to go into open spaces where I can not only look into a wall in front of me. But to do that is not as simple as it sounds. And you have to make sure your clients understand you're going to do that as well. So it really started with then planning around, I want to every month for 1 week, every month, go to a destination in beautiful South Africa, because we couldn't travel, obviously, and still today it's very difficult. And I will find, and I actually appointed my wife, Krista, as my travel agent, believe it or not, because it became a mission, because we plan a year up front. So now, from last year, July, we have been away every month for 1 week, and some months, 2 weeks, and some months, even more than that. And it's working for us. And my year's already planned until December to be away. And that creates a new energy, a new passion. It creates that differentiation, and it creates a powerful whole person concept.
Yeah, I like how you, like if I go back what you said right in the beginning, you said like you want to see water, you want to see the sea and a river and so forth. So you don't want to see the water in your pool. So I'm just thinking, like you want to go, damn, seeing that river is amazing. Like, that's combining everything into one. But and it is not easy. Like I've also done this working from anywhere. Like I've always had this thing that I want to work from anywhere in the world, and I've said this for like before lockdown, but never had a concrete plan. Never had a sort of a thing when I'll do it, like a specific goal and a date, and like from when do I and how am I going to make this happen? I had none of that. And then this happened, and then I sort of slowly but surely. So some of the things you're mentioning, I've also battled with. So I always think about internet connectivity. I don't really think about anything that, and if I can have a bride. So those are the two most important things in my life. So if I have internet, I can do my thing, and I can also broadcast the show and all of that. So you do your homework, and then you rock up there, and then you realize like, what's on the website? That Wi-Fi they talk about just simply isn't great. And I know like you and I mean, you've been part of Propulsion Pro now since the beginning, and you've been on the best practice huddles, and you give a lot of value there to other members, and you gain a lot of value there. But I know that sometimes you found it difficult, to connect when you're in places where it should be fine, and then it isn't fine. So how do you deal with that if you get there and you find like, you can't really speak to clients because the internet is not as great? What do you do then?
It is an important point, because if you have, like I do at the moment, 5 reviews per day of average 45 minutes a review, you plan your day so particularly, and especially if you're working from anywhere, you plan that your day doesn't start early. So my day doesn't, when I work from anywhere, start at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. It actually starts at 9 o'clock. You also don't want it to finish at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. It finishes at 4 o'clock. Why? Because my wife always goes with me, and we want to enjoy where we are. So we will wake up at 7 o'clock, go for a run or a walk, or go to the beach or whatever. In the evening, go for a game drive. So therefore, you have to plan your day perfectly. So I've taken it one step further, where I obviously make sure I carry my own Wi-Fi routers with strong routers. I even have an inverter I can carry around, portable, so I don't have to worry about if the place they have a generator, but the generators run out of diesel, it's a problem. But my wife, honestly, is a good travel agent. She does check everything, and she puts it on black and white, and they have to put it on black and white, so that when we are out there, we don't have these problems, because that could be much more stressful than working from home, where it's all perfect, but then going from working from anywhere where you want to enjoy your work environment, but then the stresses of Wi-Fi and load shedding comes upon you. You don't want to do that. Yeah. So unfortunately, it takes planning, it takes dedication, because you want to make this work for you every month.
And Cobus, the other thing when it comes to this, right? So I see this when I travel with my studio, my mobile studio. I've been broadcasting from the Western Cape quite a few times. I've been 1 or 2 other places. I'm now going to the UK, so I'm going to broadcast from there as well. But I want to know from you, like, I mean, it's quite a different tech consideration, right? So the kind of tools and equipment and things that you do take with you, because the last thing you want to do is like take all your stuff. You want to be as mobile, specifically if you're going to fly. You're not always driving, right? So you are flying a lot as well. And you want it to be as light and as compact and as easy as possible, but still have that experience and quality when you use the stuff from a client point of view. So what are some of your key tech things that you bought, that you thought, like, when you first started traveling, you took all this stuff with, and then you realized there must be a better way. And then there's like, what is currently your setup for that? And I'm going to put, while you talk just for a second, I just want to put the picture up again from this morning, because I think a lot of things are in that picture. In terms of that, but talk us through some of the tech stuff that you use, and that's really critical to being able to work from anywhere.
What I try not to do, Francois, is double up on equipment, because we all have cost and money that we have to save to keep our practice effectively, especially if you're going to travel around a lot and work from anywhere. It all costs money at the end of the day if you don't plan it. So what I have a webcam, I have a portable light that goes into a bag, I have a portable stand, and some of it is a bigger stand as the one you can see in that picture when I do local trips, because you have a car, you drive down, we always drive wherever we want to be. And then I have a portable stand, a light stand, just with a top on it where I can put my laptop on or camera on or anything like that. So at the end of the day, what I try to do is keep it as small as possible, but effective as possible. So you have to invest initially in this technology, in the type of equipment you need to use, so that when you travel, you can travel light. But when you travel internationally, like we were doing in August, then you need to become even lighter. And therefore, there is certain things you can do. Small webcams, small speakers, small light that you can go with you that just beams up right at the right point of what you're doing. It takes time and it takes planning, but it's not as complicated as it seems. Yes, it took me a while. As you would remember, the one trip I was in Durban, I had 2 bar stools standing on top of each other with the laptop. Those days are gone. Now you learn from experience, you learn from your mistakes, and you just plan better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I recently, when I went to Hermanus for a conference there, I had to take stuff with, and I took a picture of everything I'm taking. And even, what's quite useful is if you look at it and you start looking for one device that can replace 2, like, that kind of stuff. Like, for instance, like if you have a USB mic, you don't need an audio interface, for example, like I do at the moment. So I need to travel with some stuff. But if I get a mic that can just plug directly into my laptop, I wouldn't need that anymore. However, I would need more USB ports. So, but luckily I've got that USB hub. But it's little things like that you realize, like, but do I really need this? Do I really need that? And once you talk to others and ask about it and how they're doing it and what they're finding, that's the way. And I think the big lesson here is that one shouldn't be afraid to try stuff. I
want to come back to you. Sorry to interrupt you, because this is important.
Okay.
Technology is so powerful. An iPhone 13, a Samsung, a laptop, a Dell, that actually your laptop that I'm standing in front without all the cameras and things around the light is so good that the pixels, the digitals, and you get 2 USB little lights you can put into your USB areas, that you don't need all this equipment. You don't need to worry about spending all that money. But I'm OCD. And when you're OCD and you want to get everything perfect, then unfortunately you take it over the top. And yes, I sometimes do take things over the top. But we don't have to. Any of my fellow advisors listening here don't have to go out and spend money, thousands and dollars and things. You can get a decent laptop with a camera, hopefully on the top, not in the bottom. There's so many people that's got cameras on the bottom. Simple thing, buy a laptop, buy a notebook with a camera on the top, with a good mic, with good pixels. And then you don't need all this nonsense.
Yeah, and you make a very important point. I think often you can enhance and better the whole experience and everything just by setting it up correctly. Never mind, a better camera is not necessarily going to make anything better if you're still looking from the bottom at your chin. It's not going to make a difference. It'll just be in high definition. But, so there's quite a lot of things that I think go together with this stuff. But Cobus, how do you, if you work from anywhere, that's quite a costly thing. So I know your wife is now an amazing travel agent. So her number is 083 Cobus's wife travel agent, so if you want to call her. But so she does a lot of that work, but still going there, having the accommodation, traveling, food, all this stuff is costly. How does one plan this properly, and how do you do it? I don't know. Can I say on a budget?
Yeah, that's never an easy question. Obviously, with years, you've built up some annuity inflows, and you've built up some RCI and timeshares, and you've got a property maybe here or there. But to me, what's important is on the Google, on the internet, there is so many powerful applications and tools that you can utilize. Lastminute.com. Many people know lastminute.com. Lastminute.com, you get up to 85% discounted rates in hotels or resorts or flights and all these things. The problem with lastminute.com, you must be willing to pack up and go. And that is what's nice about, creating this virtual world, not being tied to a bricks and mortar, if I can say that, because that means if I see a special cruise or a special place, we can book lastminute.com, and lastminute.com doesn't mean last minute. So on cruises, it means maybe not a year before the time, but a month or 2 months before the time. An international destination or flight doesn't mean lastminute.com. Some lastminute.coms is booking a hotel in Cape Town or Sun City or one of those places. But use your websites, find those discounts. Timeshare is not a good thing always, but if you have RCI, you can exchange that to wherever you want to be. So if I've got RCI at Sun City, I can go to Subula, wherever they have RCI. And all of this becomes a cost-effective means and way to travel, to see the stunning country of us, this beautiful country of us. Take the stress off yourself and put the stress back on what you love to do. And that is a good stress. It's not a negative stress. And make sure you just love what you do. And make sure you plan where you can some of these trips away. One of the trips we're going on now in August is Italy, Turkey, France. And some of that will be holiday, believe me. But some of that has to be working from anywhere. Because if I want to do 100% of my clients' reviews that I do every year, it's important to me. And if they have living annuities, and that living annuity falls on one of my trips, I need to be able to talk to them. So when you plan these things, there's huge bargains on Airbnb. One of the things people don't know. So we're going down to Plettenberg Bay from the 1st of November to the 31st of November. That will be our first month session, not a week session. So next year, we're trying to convert it from weekly sessions, maybe have 2 or 3 month sessions, and maybe have 1 or 2 3-month sessions. What I refer to as the Swallow or the Nomad Financial Advisor. So the Nomad is we're traveling in South Africa. The Swallow is it's winter in South Africa. Can I go to Malta or Mauritius and go and enjoy the summer there instead of the winter there? how we plan this. Airbnb, here's a tip. Airbnb, bookings.com, as soon as you book 28 days. So Plettenberg Way would have costed me, for instance, 75,000 Rand for 50 days, up to 95,000. And then I'm talking on the beach, on the lagoon, beautiful garden, fully furnished. 28 days, 27,000 a month. Now that is where you get bargains if you appreciate how to plan these things.
Yeah, and one has to like think ahead, and I think as you start doing these trips, you also learn, oh, we didn't think about this, we didn't think it, like you just get more clever. I always want to say as these things go on, and it's also not, I think a lot of times it's maybe, it can cause a bit of anxiety when you do it for the first time, especially, depending on what it costs and where you want to go and so forth. I want to move on a little bit, Kobus, so we've now talked about the office-based practice, like working from office. We've then gone to working from home and then working from anywhere, which I think is the ideal for most people, because that talks to, and you believe in this whole person concept, which is also an MDRT thing. So working from anywhere really, because that would include your office at home. It would include the Wimpy down the road. It would include a luscious beach somewhere, and you can do all of that. But there's this new thing, and I think we sort of thought like, no, this is for big companies and for Silicon Valley and, all these weird and wonderful places, and that, the normal financial advisor on the street may not be able to make use of this stuff. But these things are becoming, and it's sort of ironic to me to call this reality, because what we're talking about is working from Meta. So I want to sort of ask you this question around why. Why should we even consider or look into working from Meta? So first, what is that? And then why?
Well, Francois, this is what I call working from Meta, the metaverse. And this, Francois and my fellow advisors, is the future of financial planning 5 to 10 years from now. But early adopter, early bird catches the worm is so true. The metaverse creates so much more efficiency, so much more practical examples. So let me take you through one of these. And to me, it's just as new. But I don't want to find out 5 years later if you don't have a VR headset or virtual reality platform that you can't work with your clients anymore. As we found out 2 years ago, that if we didn't have Zoom, we would not work with clients anymore. So imagine this place where you can get into your client's head, and that's why it's called the VR headset. Imagine you can take your clients, and especially at this stage, I'm looking at my younger generation clients, the Gen Zs and all these generations they talk about, that use this equipment for gaming. I'm not a gamer. I'll never be a gamer. But if you have a VR headset, and if your young yuppie or young new gen advisor's got a VR headset, imagine taking him for a financial planning meeting or a review meeting onto a yacht where you can stand next to each other, shake each other's hands, embrace each other, and look at the beautiful view, where you can take your client into a helicopter drive, where you can take your client to any place, where you can sit in front of a conference table with screens in front of you, like Zoom, and share your screens with your clients. Imagine you talk to your client about education for their children, and they said, I want my kid to go to this university. You can take that client to that university and actually see the real university. That client that wants to go on retirement, imagine that client says, I want to be on retirement in Comoros or Mauritius or Cape Town, but I'm now in Joburg. Then build the interest, get the client interested, but showing him where his retirement place is going to be. If your client have got a specific objective to go and see France, Paris, the Louvre Museum, virtual reality allows you to go into that Louvre Museum, to actually can stand in any point, just turning around in one single point and pinpoint and transfer yourself to that portrait with even reading that little fine print of why this portrait is there. This metaverse, and I am, and I shouldn't say it, I'm turning 59 this year. Thanks God, I love technology. But this metaverse is what Zoom was 2 years ago, my friends. This metaverse is where we need to create a new experience, a new world but not experience on Zoom, not experience on Teams, an experience where you and your client can be in one area together, borderless, nothing in your way. That is the meta that I am interested in. And that's the meta I've climbed on board and I will adapt to.
That's amazing. I know there was this research done because there's always this, why are young people reluctant to save for retirement? And one of the biggest things, and I'm just taking this as an example, one of the biggest things is that they couldn't see themselves 40 years later. And the research actually showed where they used AI to age this specific person, and they showed them a picture of what they would look like at 60. There was more of a connection, and the people that they did that with actually saved more and committed to save more than the ones that didn't see themselves at 60 or 65. And this is exactly what you're saying, getting into the head. I think there's now sort of two things. The one is getting into the head of the client, meaning understanding the client and really appreciating where they're coming from, what their goals and fears and aspirations and all these things are. And on the other hand is getting the head by showing them what the future can look like if they do something today, which I think is absolutely incredible. So thanks for sharing that, Cobus. I want to, we've got a few minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes left, and I want to do some fun questions with Cobus because I think there's things that I wonder about and that other people probably are also wondering about. Flags. It's just, well, not just flags. It is South African flags everywhere, from your socks to your cap. There's even a flag on the front of your VR headset now. I look at that incredible image on the TV behind you, and thank you for bringing Propulsion into your office. We really appreciate that. But it's flags everywhere. It doesn't matter where you go. Why?
I honestly feel addicted, and I shouldn't say it, but I'm addicted to the South African flag colors. I'm addicted to our country. We have many problems. I've traveled the world, Francois. And when I land at Oliver Tambo Airport, I could not be happier to land in a country that's got fantastic weather, fantastic people, personalities, and beauty that you cannot imagine. And forgetting politics, forgetting crime, forgetting all these things. If you're not going to be proudly South Africa, why are you living in this country? If you're not going to believe that there's a future for you and your children here, or for you as a pensioner one day, why are you living here? So sometimes it's all about the mindset. And I say sometimes, if you don't have a passion, if you haven't found your purpose, you haven't found your why, manipulate your brain until you find it. Because if you do it for 66 days, you will get it right. But proudly South Africa, I'm addicted. I went now down to Cape Town on the weekend. My wife goes in shopping. I just walk and I see the South African flag shop colors. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's like a magnet. It pulls me and I go and buy 3 or 4 items again for the next time. I'm addicted to proudly South Africa. I'm addicted to this flag, to this color. And I'm proud to say that. And I wish more of us will feel as addicted. The same as I am addicted about our profession. It's a noble profession. We change people's lives. In South Africa, we are so fortunate to live here. We are so fortunate to be proud of that. We have a very strong profession, but also a country that has got so much opportunity, Francois.
Yeah, absolutely. Cobus, what's on your bucket list?
Yeah, that's a question I did not expect. But I can tell you what is on my bucket list. My bucket list is to entrench this working from anywhere. Make sure I see places I've not seen before. Because if you don't have things that you're looking forward to, there's no excitement, there's no passion. And my bucket list is simply, I will live a whole person concept. I will live a balanced lifestyle. I will love what I do for my clients, for our profession, for our country, and I'll be an ambassador for whoever I believe in is doing something positive in this country and in this world.
That is amazing, Cobus. Yeah, thank you so much. I do want to say, like, you've got to go check out the comments. It's been going ballistic. Like, everybody's commenting and sharing and talking to each other and all sorts of stuff. So I think the things that we shared this morning has really, resonated with a lot of people. I see Mel is asking, can we fly virtually? Because that should be cheaper. So there's all these innovation already happening on here, and so definitely something that we're sparking. But really, really thank you to everybody that's been commenting, Cobus. So you can go have a look on YouTube and on LinkedIn what people have been saying and so forth. So, but just thank you to everybody. And then Cobus, thank you very much for being with me this morning. I really appreciated it. It's been incredible. There's some things I want to talk more about the metaverse. I want to get more into the tech that you use. I want to get more into stuff. So, but yeah, that's another reason to get you back again in future. So thank you very much for being here, for sharing everything. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Francois.
Alrighty. So my guest next week is Georgina Smith from Innate. Really an incredible lady. I've spoken with her on a panel that we did for the Financial Planning Summit last year. And I thought to myself, I have to get her onto the show. They've built an incredible platform. But she's also got some great and valuable insights because they've gone through this process for the last 4 years. So really excited to have her on the show. So we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Be blessed and prosper. And remember to raise the bar. Love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Remember to check out the live show, Propulsion Live, on YouTube every Friday at 7 a.m. South African time. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. That's propulsion.co.za/live. And please remember to subscribe, share with your colleagues, your friends, and anyone who may find value like you did in this podcast. Once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next episode.